Okay, I'm struggling.
I
I'm
can't.
struggling.
Do you
Hold
want
on.
me to do
No,
it?
hold on. I got it. I'm trying to start. Okay, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Let's Dig podcast. My name is Pierre.
I'm Danny Lee.
Okay, did we ever tell you guys a story about last year where we had to take a bunch of cold showers? Actually, I think I was the only one taking cold showers. You guys weren't taking showers at all.
Oh, I did. I did a. I
Bird
forget what they
bath?
call. Yeah, it was something like that.
Yeah, bird baths
It
don't
was
be working.
It was really bad. So last summer, I had finished working at a job at the church, and so June was like my first month of not working at the church. I had looked for months, babe. Do you remember? I was trying to just get like a 9 to 5. You were traveling a good amount of time then, so I was like, I'll just get a 9 to 5, and that way I can be home with the kids on the weekends. First of all, I'm not a 9 to 5er, and I don't know why in my head I keep thinking that I could be. I'd be miserable.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, it wasn't working out. I couldn't get any interviews. It just was not working out. And so we go into June, and I have no job, and the kids are out. Like Jordan was out of school. Our 10-year-old was out of school.
Mhm.
Our 4-year-old Brooklyn, she still goes to daycare. So that was that. And I was panicked. I
Yeah.
was stressed. I'm like, how are we going to make this work? Like,
Yeah.
so I shifted our schedule a little bit to have the kids home with me a little bit more.
Yeah, I remember that.
And the first weekend of June, it was a Saturday night. You were out of town.
Yeah.
And I get a text message from our landlords that says, hey, the gas has been turned off for the entire weekend. It'll get turned back in on Monday.
Meanwhile, I'm somewhere in some nice, luxurious hotel working, though. It was struggling. It was a struggle.
And this is Saturday night. I don't know what we had done that day. I think Jordan had a soccer game. So we were like stank. Saturday night is like wash hair day, like take showers. Everybody gets ready for church on
Yeah.
Sunday on Saturday night. So I was looking at the kids like, oh my gosh, we cannot have baths tonight and showers tonight. And so the landlords put us in a hotel, and I was like, well, I guess I'm just going to make the best of it. So
Yeah.
I packed the kids up by myself.
I don't feel like you saw it like that. Like
I
you were trying to make the
did.
best. Remember, I had to call you and say, babe, like the worst that can happen is you're still at home. Like, remember, I had to like talk you into how much of a blessing this was.
I
That
don't remember that part, but whatever.
That's fine. That's fine.
Anyways, so I picked up McDonald's for the kids, and we went to the hotel.
Hey, you know, there's some people that hate McDonald's that are listening.
There's little people that hate everything.
That's true.
So,
Hey,
but let them
okay,
hate.
Anyways, go ahead.
Anyways, so we go to the hotel. That was the first weekend of June. We come home. We wait till Wednesday. No gas. Meanwhile, this ends up going on for a very long time. We do not have gas in
Over
our
a
house.
month, maybe 2
So
months.
it was 2 months total. We could not cook on the stove. We could not get any hot water. Have y'all ever tried to wash dishes with cold water?
Yeah.
It's disgusting
And-
because the food doesn't break down. It's like, ugh,
And we have these kids that always be stinking dirty.
stank and dirty.
Like our son, he's
So-
10. He was playing sports at the time, right?
He was so funky.
Boy.
So for me to take a shower, I would take a plastic big tub, and it fit in our microwave perfectly. So I knew exactly how long to warm the water up and then run it to my shower. And then I would take my loofah, wet my body, and then suds everything up. And then I would dump the thing on my body to rinse me off. And that was my showers for 2 months. I would go to like my friend's house once a week to just like cry in the shower and wash my hair.
That's crazy. Yeah. Meanwhile, I was taking cold showers.
He was taking cold showers. You're crazy. And then we got the electric heaters that warmed up the kids' baths, but it took
Yeah.
2 hours to warm up a bath for one
That's crazy.
child.
Well, here's the point of this story while we're telling you guys this is because actually each week God provided and we were in a hotel every single week, plus grocery money was sent to us.
So for like the first month, because they didn't know how bad the repairs were going to be, this was for our whole entire complex. So it was a city thing. The mayor was involved. It was like a whole thing. It was on the news. It was ridiculous. But because our landlords were trying to take care of us, they would send us to a hotel. And honestly, we had the best time. Brooklyn still, when we drive by, she's like, I want to go to the hotel.
This girl, we drive by any hotel. She's like, that's the hotel we stayed at. I'm like, no,
She wants to go back all the time. We really did like make the best of it. But it was so hard to go without that. I put on some extra weight because we were eating out all the time because we were getting blessed with grocery money because we couldn't cook. We were going to hotels. The kids were having so much fun. It was stressful for us. I didn't have a job. And through June and July, basically what our landlords ended up having to do was, because of the gas situation, they couldn't charge us rent for that month. So for those 2 months, we did not have to pay rent.
Yeah. And you know what's wild about this whole thing as we talk about this? First of all, if you guys can't tell, we're testifying about the goodness of our God. Because when we went into that summer, you was just in between jobs, trying to find something. Every single door was getting closed in front of you. And I remember how much you panicked. I remember how much you were stressed out. So stressed out. And I remember also telling you, babe, do you not remember the God that we serve and how God has always taken care of us, how he's always provided, how we have never starved, we have never been out on the streets, even when we've been between homes, between cars. Like, yo, we got stories to tell you guys, and we're going to tell you a bunch of stories today.
So that summer was literally like this tornado of like no hot water, no cooking at home, go to a hotel, unpack from a hotel, go to a hotel, but you can't find a job. So you don't have extra income coming in. So you're just gonna have to figure it out, but you don't have to pay mortgage or like your rent. So like, it was just chaos. Yeah. But when August came around, it was the week that Jordan was going back to school, and we took the kids to the beach, and they told us that day, it was a Tuesday, and they were like, there's a potential that the gas could get turned back on. And I was like, man, I am not believing y'all. It's been 2 months. Y'all are full of trash. I'm not listening to you, and I'm not believing you, and I'm not getting my hopes up. We go to the beach with the kids, and they text us and said, you're good to go. So on Tuesday, the hot water turned back on. On Wednesday, Jordan started 4th grade. And thank the Lord he didn't have to do it as a stinky child.
Right.
So he got to take a shower before the first day of school. And on Thursday, I had an interview for a job. And on Friday, I started work. And it was literally like that whole week was like Tuesday, gas turns on. Wednesday, Jordan goes back to school. Thursday, you got a job. Friday, you start working. And I remember telling friends of like, y'all, Jesus was just laughing at me all summer long because he knew how it was going to work out, and that I just had the best 2 months of spending time with my kids, of not working, of enjoying the summer, being at a hotel, being at home, being at hotel, being at home. Like, it was just like, man, I wish I would have just like trusted the Lord was going to work it out, and just like relied in that and laid in that a little bit more. But it was so cool. At the end of the day, after all the struggles, I was like, man, God, you are so good. Like, he had everything in his timing, and it was all the same week.
Yeah. And I feel like what happens too, a lot of times people, because you don't know what the future looks like, you feel like you just have to take control of it.
It's true.
And going into that summer, you started out forgetting who holds the future.
Well, and I told you, I've had this realization in the last few months of that my Enneagram is a 2 and I'm a helper. And I'm realizing how much that impacts my relationship with God. And that I feel this immense stress of, I have to help him. I have to do my part. So did I not send out enough resumes? Did I not look enough for a job? Did I not save enough? Did I not? Like, I feel that pressure so much of like, I'm not doing my part. God is, but I'm not doing my part. And that's not how he works. I realize that's something I have to work on.
So the reason why we're sharing this story with you guys is because we put our faith in God. We know that God provides. And that summer, I remember when we spoke about it every single day, and you and I, we're very different. Like, I have so much faith in God.
Right.
I have so much faith in God, nothing can shake it. You could kick me out the house. You could take my car, take every single dollar that I have. I literally don't care because I know who's my provider.
Right.
And that summer, I remember telling you, I was like, babe, like, could it be that God is actually giving you a summer off? You telling me we had 2-3 months without having to pay rent.
Yeah.
Somebody put us in a hotel, gave us grocery money every single week. The kids were in the pool, kids were going to the beach,
Yeah.
hanging out. You were off. But the whole first few weeks of it, you was wrestling with God the whole
Yeah.
time of just like, but God, it should be looking like this. It should be looking like this. We should be doing this. And God's like saying, relax, chill, I got this. And that's what I felt going into that summer was like, we have never seen God leave us
Yeah.
in all of our 14 years of being with each other. I mean, I remember that time when we first got married, right? The first apartment that we lived in, West Palm Beach, Florida. And, you know, like I was just starting out in ministry. You're just starting out in hair.
Yep.
So we were barely making money.
Making
We
nothing.
were struggling. I mean, guys, we never saw inside of a bank, but we always saw inside of a check cashing store because every time our checks came in, we had to go straight to the check cashing store to cash it because we literally needed money that day. I mean, this 15 years ago, 14 years ago. And I remember us never being able to put gas in our car. We would always have to like pull out the coins, go to Publix.
Yep. We
cash
had
in
a box that had kept all our coins in it.
Yeah, your Red Ken box. And we would cash in all the coins and put $7 gas just to make it around that day. The next day we put $12 and 50 cents, just whatever we had. But I remember, you ever been so broke where when you go to put gas in the car, you can't lock the gas latch, like you got to hold on to it and stop it exactly at $8. That was
exactly
and if that thing goes over, boom, your account is over.
Yep.
That was us that year. But I remember one day we're pumping gas. It's at a Sunoco or something like that.
Sunoco, right there at the crisscross, right where we live. Yep.
Yeah. And I'm pumping gas. Y'all, I'm pumping gas and I'm holding on to it. And I let it go. And I'm like, I'm gonna keep watching the meter to make sure it stops at like $8. And I open the door and I look back at Danny Lee in the passenger seat. And I said, babe, one day we're gonna be able to put gas in our car. God's going to provide. And we actually will never have to look at how much we put in. We just hit that gas thing, hit the lock on there, and just wait for it to click. And I remember, guys, when I said that, like my faith saw into the future, but our current situation.
I was in tears just thinking about it.
I've never done that before at that time. At that time, I'm thinking like, I've never filled up my gas tank at that time.
It's wild.
So for me to say it with my mouth, I just knew God was taking care of us. And you guys remember this in a couple episodes ago, we shared about 3 things that you should know about us and how we made it to this point.
Yeah.
And one of them was this right here, our faith in God. And I kid you not, fast forward a few rough years later, we're just putting gas. And one day I'm putting gas. And I'm just putting gas, click, pump. I just put it in. I don't even see how much gas was costing that time at the gas station.
Yeah.
I don't even see how much we put it in. It could have been 50, 60, 70 bucks. I don't know, depending on where we were living at the time. And we're driving. And I remember in my heart telling Danny Lee several years ago, I said, oh my gosh, babe. You remember when several years ago, I said one day we'll be able to put gas in a car with never having to think about how much we put into it?
Yep.
We've literally been doing it for years before we realized we spoke that. God's been providing for us.
It's so crazy. And I want to like just make a mention of how much it takes to get to that. Like you saying that in that season where we were literally using quarters to fill our gas tank.
Yeah, man.
Made it feel so far away. And then it took years for us to realize, oh, wait. The Lord has answered literally those prayers for the last 2 years and we haven't even thought about it.
Yeah.
And then to know that then there's another level of faith and growing. And then that you begin to like, another one was putting Jordan in private school. Mm-hmm. These California schools are trash, y'all. Like I'm not putting him in public trash, like schools.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling that pressure from not a pressure from the Lord, but just heavy on my heart. Like, we got to get him in something else. We got to get him in something else. But we do not have private money school or private school money.
Yeah.
And so we started looking at them, having no idea how we're going to pay for it. And now he's about to finish his first full year there.
Yeah.
He's been there for a year and a half and it's every month. I don't know how it's going to happen, but the Lord really has provided.
Yeah,
and
provides.
So it is just a faith walk of like, it's just one foot in front of the other and knowing that he truly does order your steps.
Yeah. Yeah. Faith has nothing to do with what you just know for sure, that your mind makes, everything makes sense in your mind. Faith is just believing in your heart, right? And the Bible talks about, we believe in the Bible, for those who don't know, we believe in the Bible. In 2 Corinthians, it talks about how we don't live by what we see. We live by what we believe.
Yeah.
And we believe in our heart. And we've always believed in our heart that God has always taken care of us. And that's how we've gotten to this point. I remember when we first got married, how things were so tight for us financially. And we remember, I remember us thinking like, God, where's literally, God, can you provide? And you remember someone just literally knocked on our door?
Yep. They knocked on our door, and it was a friend of ours. And he said, hey, this is not from me, but the person it is from doesn't want you to know who it's from. And they're like, but here's this cash, this envelope. And it had over $500 in that envelope for us. And I remember we needed over $1,000 in like 3 days, maybe 1,500. But it was a big amount of money that we needed in a short amount of time. And one way that came in was literally money walking to our door. And to this day, we still don't know whose money that was.
But we knew it was God that did it. God uses people. He uses things. You remember that one time when one of our cars broke down? Actually, so we've always had one car. We've had two cars. Right now we have two cars. We've had two cars before. But most of our marriage, we've always had one car, right? We did so much moving, so we always just had one car. It was easier. But I remember several years ago when we lived in Pasadena, we had just the Jeep, remember? And our transmission went out.
Ugh.
And me, you, Jordan, our son, all of us had to be at different places sometimes.
All the time.
At the same time.
Yeah.
And I remember that season praying, I'm like, God, you see all of our situations. You see our problems. You see what we're going through. I don't even need to ask you to provide. I know you will provide. And I remember our car was in the shop. Once we got the call, the guy would be like, yeah, it's going to be a couple $1,000s to rebuild your whole transmission.
Yeah.
And he's like, the car is still in good shape. Like, you do it. I'm like, we don't have a couple of grand right now.
Yeah, I would think it was like 3,000.
Maybe four. Maybe four.
Was it closer to 4?
Yeah, 4 or 5. But we just didn't have it.
Whatever it was, we didn't have it.
We can't just cough that up right now. I'm just going to be real with you guys. And I remember all of our friends, our community, our tribe came in clutch. We had people picking you up, taking you places. I had people picking me up, taking places, would pick me and our son up, take us places. And I'll never forget one day someone came knocking on our door. They called us, say, hey.
Yeah, they said, we want to come hang out.
Hey, are you guys home? I'm like, yeah, what's up? And they're like, yeah, we just want to come and hang out and see you guys. And I was like, this is weird. And they sat there and gave us an envelope, literally with half of the money that we needed to get the project started on the car.
Right, because the mechanic said you had to pay half for us to start it and then half to pick it up. And we didn't have none of nothing.
And I remember thinking like, wow, God, like how you work, how you surprise us. Like our faith in God, guys, has never wavered. It's never been shaken because I've seen him move ever since I was a kid. But we've seen him move in our relationship. I mean, time after time. Remember that time in St. Louis? Remember he was at the grocery store?
It was Valentine's Day week, and we hadn't been in St. Louis for very long, two months. And I went to go to Aldi. And if y'all know Aldi, Aldi is already like budget-friendly groceries.
This is about 9-10 years ago.
Uh-huh. And I went to go get just a few things. I mean, I'm talking like less than 10 items, just enough to get us through. I knew what I could cook to get us through. And I went to pay and the card declined. And I was so confused because I knew I had just enough money for what I was spending at that store. And I was like, wait, what? Like, I was so embarrassed. And eventually, like, I guess a bill had gone out that I forgot about. It was a small bill. And so it made a difference of my groceries. And the lady standing behind me, she was like, no, honey, it's okay. I got it for you. And I was like, oh, and she was like, it's okay. And she just looked at me and she was like, happy Valentine's Day. And I could cry thinking about it right now. Like, it's so humbling to know, like, sometimes they're just people that are going to do that for you. And it is God's hand blessing us in those moments and just saying, hey, I got you. A few weeks ago, we went to a place and we got pizza. And I told this story to a friend and I was like, please don't judge me, but I'm going to tell the story now. We went to go get pizza. It was just the 4 of us. And things were tight that week. And I was like, I don't know how we're going to make it, whatever. So we just got one pizza and some wings. Well, this is gross, y'all. We found a hair on the pizza.
Yeah.
And so I took it up front to the lady and I was like, hey, I just want you to know, like,
Yeah.
we found a hair and that's really gross. And she was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And I was like, no problem. And I walked away. And in my head, I thought, man, I could have been so mean. I could have been so rude.
Yeah.
I could have gone hard on that lady because that's disgusting. But I didn't. I just walked away and I went and sat back down. And later on, she came over and she said, hey, I'm so sorry about what happened. She was like, I'm going to give you a refund for your pizza and I'm going to send you home with a whole nother pizza.
Yeah.
And like, it overwhelmed me that day of just like, man, you didn't even just take care of our food for today. You sent us home with a whole nother pizza. The kids ate the pizza all week. And it was such a small thing. And a lot of people wouldn't have thought nothing of it. But to me,
it's big.
It was big.
It's like God saying, like, daughter, I got you.
Is exactly what it felt like, of like, hey, it's okay. I've got you guys.
Yeah, he's a God of detail and he loves us. He cares for us. Like he wants to provide for us. Like the Bible talks about, right? Jesus was teaching him like the Father in heaven, if he takes care of the grass, right?
Yeah.
He takes care of the birds in the air. How much more does he not want to take care of us?
Yeah. I always love the part of that scripture that talks about the wildflowers and how beautifully they're dressed, but no one sees them. And like, that's how much more does your Father want to dress you and take care of you and provide for you?
Yeah, we've talked about this in a few episodes ago, just about, Matthew chapter 6, where Jesus is talking. He just says like, stop worrying about what you're going to wear, what you're going to eat, like, you know, all those type of things. He was like, just seek me.
Yeah.
And everything else will line up. And that's literally been our story all these years.
Yeah.
That's how we've done it. Like even our kids, we've seen God come through for them and provide for them. We've been through, I remember several years ago when my grandmother passed. It was 2020, top of the year when my grandmother passed, and you were pregnant with Brooklyn.
I was in the hospital.
You're in the hospital. And you was on pelvic rest too. So your boy, your boy was
relax. We were on full bed rest. We don't need to go any further into that statement. Thank you so much.
Yes. So for all the married men that have women that are pregnant, you know what I'm talking about when your wife is on bed rest / and the doctors are like specifically pelvic.
That was at the beginning. You're getting your story confused.
Well,
you just want to complain about it.
I'm still traumatized about the pelvic resting place. All right. Because that's messed up for your boy.
Okay.
All right? But I remember you're in the hospital. Brooklyn, you're high risk. You have preeclampsia.
Yep.
We have no
Brooklyn
family.
Can come any day.
We have no family at the time. Like we weren't at a church.
Yeah.
I was traveling a lot.
Yeah,
I was in and out of different countries.
A lot.
And I remember getting a call that my grandmother passed, and you're about to have this baby anytime. You have the baby, and I'm sitting here thinking like, God, what am I gonna do?
Yeah.
Like Jordan is only 6 years old at the time, and I'm like, God, what am I gonna do? Like the finances right now we're paying for so much food, groceries, things like that. You're in the hospital. There's still, luckily most of the bills were taken care of. I'm like, how are we going to get to Florida to cover those costs? And plus hotel, maybe a place to stay, car to rent, all this stuff. Then eating out. Somebody sends me money and say, here, get all the flights that you need for you and your son to go bury your grandmother. I'm like, wow, God. Wow, God. Someone else calls me and say, hey, I know you're going to bury your grandmother. What do you need? I was like, man, I got to rent a car for the whole week.
Yeah.
They're like, all right, pick whatever car you want to rent and send us the bill. We'll get it for you.
And then my mom was able to fly out to take care of me for that whole week because I had just had C-section. I couldn't drive to go see Brooklyn in the NICU. So like you were leaving, but you couldn't leave me with no one. So like she was able to come and stay with me for that week so that you could go to that funeral.
Even Brooklyn is a testimony, right? She was born 9 weeks early.
9 weeks early.
And she was just outside of the window where her brain was developed.
So,
had she come a week earlier?
A week or two before that. So when they're born like 29 or 30 weeks, there's a part of their brain that fuses together. If they're born during those 29, 30 week mark, a lot of them can have brain bleeds, and it's causes major development delays. Sometimes it's handicap, sometimes it's motor skills. Like I'm talking kids in wheelchairs and walkers and,
Yeah.
like huge delays. And she came at 31. She came right after it. And she has nothing.
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 If you guys haven't seen, go on our Instagram, on the Let's Dig the Podcast Instagram. You can go on our personal pages. You can see pictures of this girl. She is literally a miracle child. Listen, y'all, we can sit here all day long.
All day.
And testify of God's goodness. If you don't know anything about God, ask us about him. DM us, send us a message. Matter of fact, if you're liking these videos, if you're enjoying this conversation right now, if you feel like this is bringing value to you, like I want to ask you, take a moment, hit that like button. It doesn't cost much. Just hit the like button. Send it to someone that you feel like needs to be encouraged by these stories. We can sit here literally all day long and talk about all the things that God has done for us. You remember that time when God healed my back?
Yeah.
We were probably year 3 of marriage, and something happened to my back. I honestly have no idea. I'm in my mid-20s around that time.
I was pregnant with Jordan.
Something happened to my back.
Yeah.
And I remember one Sunday morning waking up, and you remember we're supposed to go to church, and we don't ever miss church.
Never.
We don't ever miss church. If my mom found out I missed church, like it's gonna be problems, right? And I woke up and I literally got out the shower, and I just remember feeling stuck, broken, paralyzed. I fell to the floor.
Like you couldn't get dressed after the shower.
I couldn't even put my clothes on.
Yeah.
I remember calling my leader saying like, I can't make it to church right now. We went straight to the chiropractor, and of course he did his stuff, did his things like that. But the pain was terrible. I've gone through a few things here and there at that time. But since, I have never dealt with anything with my back ever again. I remember praying. I had my mom praying because my mom has a main direct line to Jesus. That
woman,
lady right there.
She squeezed IBS out of me. Do you remember that? I was having tons of stomach issues when we first got married, and it was affecting our new married life. Like it affected me. I couldn't finish dinner at a restaurant because my stomach would be upset. It was terrible. And I was going into the doctor, and the doctor would do a colonoscopy. And right before I went in for the colonoscopy, your mom prayed for me. She had all her prayer line people praying for me. But I always joke about because she was squeezing my stomach so hard. Yeah. And I was like, babe, I think she squeezed me to a size 4. Yeah. And if you know me, you know I'm not a size 4. Yeah. Never have been. But I joke about she squeezed the IBS out of me and healed me because but when I got the colonoscopy results, the doctor said, man, I did think you had Crohn's actually. And she was like, and you could tell that something was irritated, but there's nothing there. And my stomach was never the same after that. Like it truly was healed.
God did it.
Absolutely.
God did it. You remember a couple of years ago where, so we live very simple lives, even though we're busy, have a lot of stuff going on here and there, but we're very intentional about the things that we do in our schedule. And so we've always had one car. For those of you that know us, we only have one TV in the house. That's by choice, not because TVs are expensive. They're actually stupid cheap.
They are.
As a family, because there's a lot going on in our lives, we decide to simplify things in the house. And so there's no TVs in the bedrooms, no TV in the kitchen. There's only one TV right here. And we're sitting right here in our living room. And if we're going to watch something, we're all going to watch it together. Right. And so we've always actually had one car. There's been times, I remember when we first got married, we had 2 cars, gave one away. Several years later, somebody gave us a car. And I remember thinking like, man, what are we going to do with a second car? It's literally going to be a burden to us.
Yeah.
It was a blessing to us that year because that year you got a job. I had to be, at the church in and out. I was gigging. I was traveling. Jordan that was his first year in school. Yep. So that boy actually had to be in school, right? Or it was daycare, but it was like school, right? It was still official. He had a schedule. We were paying for it. And God provided and just literally dropped the car in our lap.
Yep.
And it was like, wait, what? And we were living in a different state. God provided all expenses were covered for all of our cars, everything to literally get moved from one state to another state.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, God. And so few years later, we didn't need that car anymore. So we got rid of it. Here we are, fast forward several years later. Now we're living in another state, California.
Yeah.
And a few years ago, some of y'all already know this story. We're in California doing our thing. Our one car that we had where the transmission had to be rebuilt, we shared that earlier. God provided, all the income came, all the funds came, literally rebuilt the whole transmission. The car is perfectly fine. Still drive it to this day. It's in great shape.
Love that car.
Great shape. And it's paid off. So that's amazing too, right? It's better than car payments. But about 3 years ago, maybe 2 years ago, God put on our pastor's heart that we were going to get a second car. And I remember thinking like, oh man, I don't want a second car. I don't want a car payment. I don't want this thing to be a burden. Like our life is super simple right now. We coordinate with one car. It's completely fine. We take Ubers. Car payments are still more expensive than Ubers. And we go on vacation.
Mm-hmm.
We come back and there's a car waiting for us at the church.
So crazy.
Somebody literally blesses us with the car.
Paid off.
Paid
with
off.
the title.
And I remember thinking like, God, where are we going to park this car? What are we going to do with it? Like we got to transfer titles, all this stuff. This car is going to be a burden. Once again, it was a blessing to us.
Biggest blessing.
Our whole schedule changed that year.
Yep.
Where there's no way we would have been able to make it with one car.
Never.
And God saw it ahead of time and blessed us. And I'm telling you, y'all, man, we could sit here all day long and literally testify. Even this home that we're living in, this condo that we're in right now, like all the things that God has provided for us in our marriage, He's restored our marriage.
Yeah.
This is what God has done for us, man.
And so today we hope that just by us sharing our experiences and our stories and what God has done for us, we really hope that it encourages you. I was telling Pierre before we started this, I said, sometimes it's so much easier to believe and have faith for someone else's situation more than what God will do for your own situation.
That's true.
I have friends that are believing for healing, and I know God's going to come through. I have friends believing for income changes and new job opportunities, and I believe 100%, 1,000% that God is going to come through for them. But it's when you reflect on like, but do you believe that God will do the same thing for your situation? And so when you hear these stories, we want that to build your faith and to know that God can make a difference for your situation, and He will make a difference for your situation. And that I always joke about, I think He is on a different time zone because it does feel like God is always late, but the Bible says that He is always on time. And so I just want to encourage you all, and I hope that our stories and us sharing these stories today really, really does build your faith to remember that God is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we could ask or even think. And that's the God we serve.
Yeah. So send this to somebody, save this, watch it again if it encouraged you. Again, hit that subscribe button, share this though. Share this, like I said, share it with somebody. We're going to keep talking about this even after we hit stop on this recording right here. And we will never stop declaring God's goodness. He's been faithful to us, and we believe that He could be faithful to you. If you want to know more about God, if you want to know about the things that He can do for you, hit us up, send us a message, DM, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, the email, all that stuff, right? Hit that link and let's connect. So let's keep digging. Let's keep using our lives to honor God. Let's keep building strong relationships with other people and with ourselves. Let's dig.